Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the Dream Labs with Dr. Contrast. And we're live. I'm really sorry for the delay here. I had a hard time getting back in. They wanted some additional verification and so forth for the broadcast itself. So, ready to go. So, thanks so much. Hello, Antares. How is everything? Really good to see you. And thank you so much for joining me today. And I think today we just kind of go back in and review a little bit and take advantage of some of the things we talked about last Wednesday. And I've got along some other things to take a look at here, but I just wanted, before I begin here, and Tara, she did a phenomenal job with those interior sketches. I thought that were really well done first time around. Really did a nice job, and what I really appreciated was the fact that she took advantage of putting the program together with the architectural stuff, and really interesting in terms of how you saw the whole process come together. The perspective looked good. I think that's one of the most difficult things of all. So once you get the block volumes down in perspective, for example, like this little sketch is showing you here. Once you like everything in red, for example, is the volumetrics in terms of the horizon line, drive lines, and the actual proportions within the actual shapes themselves. But the key there is once that volume is down, the idea is to get it all integrated and bring it all together. And I think you did an excellent job on all four of those sketches. Is there anything I can help you with before we begin here? I don't want to take much of the time here, but I want to spend some time working with you. If you have any questions about your work, etc., and how we can maybe refine some things, not that you need to. I mean, I really did. I thought you did a phenomenal job all the way through with those guys. In fact, I've got them right here. Let me just kind of bring them up here, and we'll take it from there. Yeah, I've got them up here. Oh, no, excuse me. And we'll just kind of blow them up a little bit. Go sideways here and get them. Yeah, the first one you did was really interesting. Just a basic perspective study. We actually put the linear work together. And the second one you did was a nice job of putting together a little bit of a freehand work, putting some of the components in. But the last two studies where you start putting some texture and color into it were really, really well done. So I think that's just a good solid start. And again, if there's anything here that you want me to kind of refine a little bit for you, or any questions you might have about the setup, please feel free to do so. Extremely helpful, I think, all the way around. And I think the main thing we're going to talk about here throughout the course of the dissertation today is really take advantage of this exaggeration and opening up the paradigm and just spreading out the door panels to get that thing more open, so you see more of the view. That's a hard thing to kind of conjure, because the more you tighten it down, as you probably noticed, and Terrace, the more restrictive it is. But when you open that up, for example, opening it up meaning doing this, look at the drive lines here, for example. There's one, and there's two. Look how wide open that thing is. I mean, that really opens things up in terms of keeping this. You can actually swing this even further and still make it work. So I think that's really interesting that you put together a good program based on that. So I'll be quiet here for a moment and just type in if you have any questions at all about what you're after. I think I wasn't really satisfied with the shapes that I designed because it's tricky to think about aesthetics at the same. That's really, I think, one of the most difficult things. Not difficult. That takes a lot of time and practice, and I think the more organic you get, the better it's going to become. And I think I'll show you some tricks here today on how that becomes part of the whole process. But don't be discouraged by the fact that even though you had shapes that are pretty well designed or tricky, not satisfied with them, you did a good job of putting all the proportions together. All the pieces were there in Terrace. I think the most difficult thing to do is get into a lot of wishboning and a lot of really compound forms when you put those pieces together. It's not an easy task to go through. So I think starting where you did, like we said in my note back to you, start with a very tight program, then go more empathic, then finish up the details. And we'll try and show you, illustrate a little bit of that sometime here today in the stream. So let's see the lesson. But aesthetics at the same time, the perspective and learning the parts of the idea. I mean, that's another element too. Interior space design is extremely complicated. It's very, very unique in terms of it's not just like an exterior. You've got a very solid form. You can kind of sculpt into it and implant the wheels and get that set. That's not easy either. I'm not dismissing the difficulty of that. But interior space, you've got all these elements. You've got x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, and all these pieces going together. You've got materials to work with. You've got different scale to work with and different elements within that system to deal with. Not an easy task to work through. In fact, when I was at Design Staff, we used to have separate interior studios and separate exterior studios. But my last few years there in the career, we started to blend those shapes together, the two studios together, exterior and interior, and we work hand in hand with outside and inside stuff, and it really was helpful. So But even that, the detailing is really the difference. I don't mean detailing being very persnickety about getting things perfect, but the idea of having texture changes, color changes, form changes, not an easy set of circumstances. So does that help? Keep after it. Just start the way you started with at Terrace. Not a difficult thing at all. Start very tight. Put the subject matter down. Get the principles in there. Get the volumes down. Then go more empathic. Now, notice you have to change the shapes and then go back in and detail, specifically look at things you want to get after. I just don't, I will keep in mind that you said in the past about being concerned with the result. I will just review the previous videos. And yeah, I think the results, again, the 4 results you had here were actually terrific. The last 2 sketches, even though you felt they were a little bit common, you did a nice job of putting the value together, a great job of putting the perspective together. Really a solid start. And if you haven't done that before, that's a standing ovations. That was a really well done piece here. So anything else, in addition to just getting the aesthetics down and being a little more rigid, anything else that kind of disturbed you a little bit? Not that that's a judgment, that you kind of wrestled with a bit? I'll just hang on here with your response from here as well. And again, back to your sketches you said. The first one was just, I looked at the basic architecture. It really well done. And I think the more you open that up, Terrace, the more you're going to start to really force the situation and getting a lot more empathic. And I've got a couple of examples here today. We'll show you hopefully how to get that, but to get rid of that very common, and again, it's just not a criticism of your work. The very straightforward interior design stuff. Good stuff all the way through. Very cool. And I think once we're waiting here, these sketches become, notice once you start to get that volume in red, where the volumes are, where the door surface might be, where the tunnel console is, or where the actual IP or instrument panel section is. Really interesting how all those 3 elements become one once you learn how to put all the pieces together. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it just little by little you kind of exercise how to blend these guys together. And your comment here again, I'm still trying to get my head around knowing the end from the beginning, from the start. That's not an easy little axiom to kind of work with. Meaning, let me translate that for you a little bit. Knowing the end from the beginning is not the fact that it's already complete in your head, that you already finish it. But if you have a vision about what that might look like, let's say that this guy, you had a vision in this sketch here. We had a vision for a very soft form coming through the IP in section format. That's a vision in terms of seeing what the end might look like, what the results might be. Then adding the components to that become part of the supporting cast members to kind of reinforce that vision. So what my point in making that comment several months ago was this: knowing the end from the beginning simply means if you have an initial vision, attack it that way, and let creativity push you into areas that might be a little bit unfamiliar, and that's healthy. Then you can begin to resolve those, and if you make some mistakes, it's still that you still have the vision intact, that you're modifying and expanding the vocabulary. That help explain that a little bit better there, Hope and Terrace? Help one? Yeah, I think it was pretty part of my issue. I didn't have a strong vision to begin with, just a vague idea. Yeah, and I think that's, but I think you chose a Toyota, right? It was a Toyota brand to kind of modify that interior, which is a good start. So the issue is, for example, if you have a vague idea, that's still part of the vision. Maybe the next time around you sit down and say, okay, I want this thing to be very low profile. I want a lot of drop from the cowl. I want to open it up into the doors. Give yourself a verbal description of it, and it helps to visualize what the sketches are doing. And again, at the end of the stream, I'll go through a couple of exercises on how to get that all established for you here. So, anything else? I mean, yeah, I think that was pretty, that strong vision to begin with. You might not have had a strong vision to begin with, but you had a great vision in the end. The results were terrific. I mean, I'm not trying to gild the lily here. I'm being very sincere. You did a phenomenal job from day one, putting that stuff together. Very difficult discipline, but you got it. But it's a very modern and flowing, etc. And I think if that's where the issue is, if your a vague idea was modern and flowing, how modern do you want it to be? Is it architectural? Is it stealth-like? Is it much more organic? Is it fluid? Is it fragmented? And does it flow in some areas and become very static in others? Those are good, solid questions. When I go through a sketch process for myself, I go through that idea in my head about running through the whole idea and say, oh, this is good. I modify this. It's always a conversation with creativity. And I think that's what you're starting to experience here too, and Terrace. Let me stop there. Anything else? Please, this is good stuff. I'm really happy we're having a conversation here. Is this helping? So if the issue again, just it didn't have a strong vision, that'll come. I think that's going to be something that's going to be healthy to work with. That will definitely come together once you start to put it all together. So that's great. So far, so good. Yeah, starting with a verbal description sounds like a good idea. Now, you don't have to sit down and take notes, but for example, when you lay down an armature, for example, a platform down, all right, you want this to be fluid. You want the cowl to be very, 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 very peaked, very organic, very dramatic looking. But inside the form, I want that to be very sedate. There was an old issue, I think, that always bothered me when that design staff. Didn't bother me, but I never really found favor with it. That a lot of the exterior chiefs, including myself, if the car, let's look at it this way. The compound or the confliction would be if the vehicle on the exterior is very organic, you go to a very sheer interior. If the vehicle on the outside is extremely sheer, go to organic interior. I don't think that really merits a lot of separation. I think one should blend into the other. You look at some of the new Corvette stuff. It's very fluid, very dynamic, and I think it blends with the automobile. Rolls-Royce, on the other hand, it's a very, very fluid, straightforward, stiff, formal shape. But even on the inside, it's tailored to look like it's much sportier. So that's a bit of a misnomer from my point of view. And then we worked with it, we got by with it, but I just never understood how some management saw it that way. But nonetheless, so what do you think? Can I move on here and show you a couple of sketches here to kind of maybe help you describe what you're talking about the verbal description and about being more organic and having more of a flowing modern design and how to open it up and take it from there. So this is where we started. I just wanted to bring that back in review. So let me just put this aside for a moment here. And I just put this page together here this morning, and I opened it up a little bit more and just see if I can get all the work in there. Yeah, there we go. This is a pretty good example. I mean, not a great sketch, don't misunderstand, but it's a good example of how you really take advantage of getting a lot more sculptural and taking chances with shape. Oftentimes, for example, if this helps, it could do with learning more specific auto and industrial design vocabulary. It's hard to describe things when you don't have the words. Well, I'll tell you what, if that's something you want to shoot at here, Terrace, I can either text or email you some of the conversation or language structure about some of the components of the industrial design vocabulary and terminology. If that helps you, I'd be more than happy to do that. Not an issue at all. I think the main part of the vocabulary is, A, you've got a great skill set. B, you practice it. C, you're putting it together. D, you're getting results. So those things are part of the vocabulary that you already have. Build on that. For example, if you're a little bit afraid of doing some of the organic work, take some chances to make mistakes. I've said this before. I make mistakes all the time, but that's where the miracles are. So that helps. But I'll be more than happy to put together a list of terms that might be of some benefit to you. Be happy to do so. But again, let me just go back to this little thumbnail sketch. You're going to want to notice here. What I want you to notice. Look how much advantage I took of the drive lines here. There's one set of drive lines right there, and there's the other set of drive lines. I mean, look how open that is. I mean, that's almost 180 degrees away from just being this to this. I mean, that's what you normally see. Yeah, that's great. I'll be happy to do that, and Terrace. I'll put together a list for you. But you see the difference there? This is what happens. This is what most people, when they start this whole operation in interior space design for automobiles or any other product that has an interior in it, very rigid. They keep the door panels parallel one to another. The trick is to really open that up. And one of the great masters of that, to me, the guys I learned the most from about this process in school, was Sid Mead. Sid Mead would take that stuff and just stretch it to no end. It's almost like an elevation, but boy, it really worked. And he put a lot of romance in the sketches. That made a huge difference. So this is something here. Let me get rid of these guys. This is something I want you to look at here. Notice how once you start to set up the cowl, which is up and through here. This is a cowl area right here. I'm around the end of the belt line. Belt line where the glass meets the upper door trim. So that belt line comes around and wraps into it. Then notice I decided also, in addition to the sketch, to put a little bit of section into this in. So it comes off the hood surface, runs right through, drops into like a heads-up display or display system up into here, a HUD system, Then it comes into section, drops into a very soft looking panel, all leather. And notice how it sculpts into the form itself. The same thing on this side, it sculpts into the body form. Then drops into a shelf, and then into the lower, and then into the door design. So all those pieces become extremely, extremely orchestrated. You take A, B, C, and D. They might be all different in character, but you blend them all into one unit, so they all begin to flow. Your comment earlier about that whole idea of flowing design. Is it fluid? How do you integrate all those pieces? Well, you just take the chance of saying, that could be up, down, inside, outside, reverse, positive, negative. It's all part of the vocabulary system you're dealing with here. So, and again, look at how, again, it comes in the center line and then drops into a tunnel console that flows right into a tunnel console all the way through. But there's a separation here. The actual crash pad comes in and drops, and it comes up again into the IP, or the steering area here. And there's a lot of control and implementation right here. There could be some elements along the way here too. But again, look at how that whole thing just kind of drops in there. And again, you come back to the tunnel console, which steps out a little bit more and just does some really neat stuff. And all of a sudden, it just opens up a little bit and just takes advantage of that. It comes in, steps out a little bit, and it goes back into the tunnel console. That's just a matter of just seeing how the forms are just kind of pushing together and beginning to integrate one with another. I can see what you mean. There is a beginning how the forms connect. Yeah, they all begin to come together. And again, this is very complicated, but it's taking a big risk. But nonetheless, that really begins to help you put together the process that you're going through. Again, no, this is a big sketch. And a little thumbnail here, almost the same view, just opening up a bit more, but being a lot more simplified. Just a nice drop off in the shape. It's almost in section, just comes off the cowl here, drops in the tunnel console on through, and then sculpts into the door. Much more fluid in terms of just being one unit. So these are very quick little sketches. I just, from last week, went into another just exaggerated a little bit more and just took a little bit further from this sketch we looked at last week. This is one of them. This is where we were last week, and a little bit more adventuresome this time around. Just kind of a lot more surface, a lot more. This is a very simple operation for the benefit of instruction. This is how you start. Here's how you break it in. Here's how you blend it, and so on. So that started the process right there. So that became part of the whole unit. Let me get this out of the way here. That became part of the whole unit measurement. Now this week, going a little further with it, take a little bit more boldness, a little bit more daring into it. And then again, this is what helps. This might help you too, Antares. I think a very good thing to look at. So a little overhead perspective, 3/4 front, 3/4 again, then a plan view. Sometimes a plan view, the way you work with a plan view can be extremely powerful in terms of, all right, what do I do with this area here? How do I break up the tunnel console? What happens with the steering assembly and the seating location? The plan views can become extremely powerful in terms of putting together some really neat, interesting things. Because once you see the plan view, you begin to visualize that from the plan view, and then you begin to rotate into perspective, and you'll be able to see what surfaces are doing and how to treat them. Do you think that might be a helpful tool for you? Going to plan view first, and maybe section, and then from there develop the perspective? I'll hold on here for a moment to get your response. Great, this is really cool stuff. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Really cool. The plan view would be a very helpful thing to go through, Antares. I mean, once you have that down, you can actually take a plan view and begin to take a very simple thing. Let me just do this for a moment here. I have to shut my phone off here for a moment. Sorry. There we go. Got it. Let me just go back and get some newsprint here. When you have that, sometimes, let's look at this just for a moment here. Sometimes we take a look at a very simple thing. Let's go back here. Let's pick up the center line here. And we pick up something that maybe it's much more radical. Maybe it's more this to this. And it rolls out and does the following. And we come through it here. And then we take that same operation on this side. Sometimes we take advantage of maybe coming in off of the cowl itself, or the belt line, which is here in plan. Bringing that open and just doing something like that. And into that, you have this. This where the pot is. Could be a control pot here. Then you come out of that area here. Maybe this thing rolls back towards the driver. The driver comes in and picks up that. Then it rolls back into disappearing. So this might be all. And again over here, you can actually take this shape and begin to mirror it by just rolling that off. This could be all HUD display up front. And then it comes in, and then you come back to that belt line again. And again, this here rotates out. There's my center line here. This is all pod. Now this can become steering wheel here. There's your location. And that comes in. This can be all fluted, which means it's flexible a little bit. Has some substance. Again, look how organic that shape is, but it takes it away from now. When you put it in perspective, now it might be this. You come in off of this, roll it out, drop it back in, go back to the peak line, bring it around, get into that pod, maybe put a little bit of section to it and then bring this in. That's where that instrument pod might be. This readout. Then you come back in with a brow over the top of that. And I'll pick up that tunnel console. It comes right off of that and does this. It comes back in over here, stiffens up a little bit, comes back to this. And then from there, goes on through and just curls right back out of there. Then again, conventional steering wheel. Up front, little HUD display. And again, underneath this, that comes out, that rolls into that, and you begin to blend these together. Speedo, instrumentation, conventional. Again, this can roll out to here and roll right back into this, into which you can come back off this tunnel console, bring it back up, roll it back in. And there you go. That makes sense? Yeah, they are. They're much more manageable plan view. You still look at the plan view, and all of a sudden, look, we just took that line right there. Antares comes around off the belt, rolls away, comes back in again, and starts it right across here. Now, I can hope that's a solid. I can use that little as a step. I can be a solid surface. I start to visualize what those shapes are doing as I go from one side to the other. Also, when I'm here, I can come back in and begin to do the following. I can add these elements to it by coming back in. An AC pod here. And on the other side, AC pod, a little bit different here. More. But again, look at the difference in character you get there. Is that helping? And sometimes it's just neat to sit back with a piece of paper and just say, all right, now let me grab a stick here. But sometimes it's just a simple matter of coming back with this. Making adjustments on the fly. That gives me half the battle right there. That's my plan view again. Does that make sense? Well, that's great. Very good. That's just fun stuff here, Antares. I think that might be a pretty good solution. That might be a very good solution down the line here for getting into things, for example, that like form or an idea ahead of time. That there's a certain character to it here that I'm going to work with. And I think the more you work with that, let me get rid of this guy for a second here. The more you work with that, the stronger it gets. Obviously, you come back in, and maybe it's a matter of coming back in and just doing this. Come back in with a very simple, aesthetic piece here. There we go. Makes sense? How fluid that thing becomes. Just a very simple little gesture sketch. It's just getting the theme down, and then not necessarily going to do a lot of definite big changes and so forth, but just very simple stuff to kind of put it all together there. So let me end that conversation if that helps you at all. I don't want to belabor the point here. Is that making sense for you? Interesting. Hopefully. Very cool. So even, let's do this, even some things like line weight really make a huge difference too, just where that stress is. Put a little more weight to it where it's at you, and then all of a sudden let it fade away. And go back in and just detail as you see fit. Very cool. Helping? Let's see, let's get rid of that guy's a mess. So let's get rid of this guy. Let's get rid of this thing here. No, so let me stop there for a minute. Anything else? I mean, you can kind of look at here. It's just a very simple stuff that we can deal with here. Again, the title of the stream was just carrying on the success, taking advantage of the perspective here. And I think while we're at it here, let's examine this thing. Look how much more I opened this thing up. There's one drive line. There's the other drive line. There's my vanishing point. There's my horizon line. Look how much I opened that thing up. I mean, dramatically. And again, when I come down to this, look at this. If I come across here and get the cowl down, and I come across here and get that shape down, and there's my depth, and then I keep that running that through in perspective. That's the volume it's sitting in. That's all part of the whole process, getting it all put together. That whole idea is to get it used to opening that thing up, stretch the imagination, just open that thing up, just open it up, and then begin to develop into it. A, get the geometry down. B, become more fluid inside the geometry by integrating all the shapes. And then C, detailing them. A, B, C. Simple as that. I mean, not simple, but that's a good, helpful process to deal with. All right, let me put these aside here, and we'll just walk you through some other examples I brought along here to kind of give you the idea of what we're after. So really, this has been great, very, very helpful, Antares. I'm really glad we've had a chance to do this one-on-one. This has been really good for me. So I'm going to hold that sketch up. Any questions about this sketch at all, Antares? You good? Hopefully. It's the same principle we just looked at here. Getting the plan view down. It's not the same design, obviously, in the plan view, but it's a variation on theme. I have a habit of just indicating shapes and forms in my drawing without fully understanding them. I think if I can overcome that, I'll be in a good, oh yeah, no question. Habit of indicating shapes and forms in my drawing without fully understanding. Well, I think good example there too, Antares, would be this. If you're not familiar with them, draw them anyway. Put them down. And then indicate with a light source where you want the shadows, lights, and darks, and that'll really open up the form vocabulary. I think that's inside out. That's working inside out, getting inside the shape, and then beginning to come to the surface on it. And I think that's really helpful. So I wouldn't hold back and become much more fluid in that sense at all. Not a bit. So I think that's very helpful. That'll give you familiarity. And I think the other thing that helps too, the more you step out and take advantage of things you're not aware of and the unknown, the more you develop the unknown, the more you begin to know it. That's a really good clue. And anything, when I designed school or even at GM, for example, we'd step out with different shapes and forms. Yeah, we didn't know them. They were very strange and sometimes very unfamiliar, but the more we refined it, the more they became known to us. And I think that may be a good helpful tool too as well. So you can overcome that. You've already overcome a big obstacle now, getting the proportions down. That's a phenomenal start. Now I'll go back in and really take advantage of going in there and say, okay, I don't know where I am here. This is a very unfamiliar form. I don't know it, but I'm going to get to know it because I'm going to work through it, give it a light source, and put shadow down into it and high contrast work, and you're on your way. To help, that's another little clue. Inside-out approach. Develop the unknown and come to know it all. Yeah, that's it. Come to know it. Get to know it. I mean, these sketches, I don't know where I'm going. I lay down the principles. I lay down the cowl line and then put in maybe some of the details but I don't know where the final. I do know it from the beginning, but I allow the unknown. This would be neat. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's unique. I didn't see that before. I can embellish this. Oh, I don't want to do that. I can make decisions now, going through the process that really emphasizes newness. That'll be a tremendous help. So yeah, I think that's a good inside out. Go inside it. It might be unfamiliar until you get to the surface, and all of a sudden you reveal it, and all of a sudden you begin to know it. So let's do this. I brought a little sketchbook along here. I picked a few things, an example here for you to look at. in terms of, again, putting the combinations together. Me too. This has been really helpful. It's very, very helpful. This is done for the four-rotor Corvette, just a little line drawing out on top. And again, notice combination exterior and interior. Notice how we opened that up a little bit. That could have opened up a little bit more, but this is done just to explain to management what the actual program would look like and what this concept sketch would do. Again, trying to show here the example of what we talked about last week, the exaggeration of open up the door systems and really taking advantage of distortion, and then also looking at the components of finding where the architecture is inside the actual sketch itself. So here we go. Let me get these. Just a real loose comes in. I don't know if there's any more here at all. Nope. Then you go to this, where you had, for example, the old Zora Arca Stuntop. That's that important thing. The important one is this one here. Let's get this guy out of the way. Another little thumbnail sketch. This is done for Honda's Acura series. Notice again, I opened that up a little bit, much more fluid, just being very specific, just picking some areas of interest to kind of highlight the actual shape itself. So again, very, very simple, very low-key IP information center. Coming through a soft leather pad and do a little break here, both sides. That could be AC and AC. Those are the decisions that are made once the shapes are down. I think hopefully I can say this to really help you here. Anybody watching, the minute you begin to take a look at a form and dictate it and expect it and utterly expect it, you've lost the image of being really creative. In other words, another way of saying that is predictability is suicide. Don't allow it to be predictable. Take a shape that is very unfamiliar, be unpredictable with it, and then begin to allow those development forms to kind of accentuate that formality and the informality. It's dangerous to be predictable because we always draw the same thing over, and then that might be part of the problem too, Antero. So you begin to draw the same shapes over again, it becomes familiar, and all of a sudden you're locked. Go to the unpredictable. Be more organic. Be much more adventuresome. Take chances. Make mistakes. That's where the miracles are. These things come about. This is years of practice for me. I've made tons of mistakes. I still make mistakes, but I'm still looking at refining those mistakes to make them better. So once you get the tight underlying structure, you shift to empathic mode and develop the theme based on your vision. Then at the end of your solve, exactly correct. That's a great formula to work with. And within that little statement you just made there, Antares, resides the following. Unpredictable. Make it predictable. Let the unknown become known. All those elements are in there, and that's part of the creative process. And if you notice too, when I draw, there's a conversation between creativity and myself. I'm making a decision, I hear a voice, oh, don't do that, oh, stop there, add this instead of that. That conversation is critical. That's what creates unpredictability. You're not being governed by what you formerly knew. You're being governed by what is all new, which is all exceptionally powerful. I don't, no doubt at all, it's exceptionally powerful. So let me move along here, and I don't want to bore you to death with this conversation. There's some other stuff here along the way. Oh, yeah, there's another one here. There's another high-profile overhead. Look how much that guy has opened up. Oop, get it on screen, it would be good. How much that thing has opened up in terms of just putting together here. Helping, look at that. I mean, and again, seating, door trim, AC, side ventilation. Notice how that shape just drops in section. Little storage area or handlebar grip, and an all digital component here. And it's all hand controlled. Underneath that is maybe where the steering controls are. Those are the things that begin to tell us what unpredictability does. It's unpredictable. You can't put steering underneath it. Yeah, you can. It's a matter of just letting the engineers work with you to kind of develop that. So let me move along here. There's another little step here. There's a couple of pages here that I thought were interesting. This is more of like let's start with this one first. Little seating concept again. Notice, very predictable. Using perspective, that framework is still in there. Drive line. Let's do this. There's my upper drive line. There's my lower drive line. Look how those two forms collapse. It puts more believability in the shape. It's not not static at all. So let's get that down together. The little seating, again, another view, same thing. The static. Look how much opened up. And a little seating configuration with a lot of netting. It's more of an off-road piece. Used for Honda, for example, and in this little section of sketches here. This was part of that program we talked about last week, the Honda Off-Road Sport. They wanted a very guttural look and a very sophisticated look, so two approaches. But I thought the unique thing about this sketch, not a great sketch, but I'm going to start developing more and more sketches like this. We did things like that design stuff for Corvette where the actual instrument panel floated off the column. Notice here, information, IP, and then notation coming off the actual IP piece itself, the information pod. That's a whole new, that's becoming unfamiliar. That's unpredictability. And all of a sudden, that predictability becomes part of the process. Let me move along here. Let's get rid of that guy. Find out where I am back here. Somewhere back in here. Yeah, there we are. Yeah, there we go. Let's go on this side right here. Here's are the kind of sketches that I work with, for example, with my client base. I'll sit down and do a series of little thumbnails like this. Just overhead shots. Again, open 3/4 fronts, and notice, just not a lot of information. Just a simple bar, AC, tunnel console, and seating. Same thing again, taking advantage of maybe putting more fullness inside that tunnel console. Let me stop here for a moment here. I don't want to jawbone too fast here. Is this helping at all? Interested to see the variation and theme here? And again, how that opens up the newness factor and makes us unpredictable. And then that becomes predictability. The more you develop the more you delve into the unknown, the more it becomes known. IP, so I made apologize. Yeah, again, that's just a floating IP. It just floats, and everything else is up. Maybe the digital system or the information system rolls out of it once you start the ignition. Those are the things you begin to think about and dream about when you start to go through these sketches. At least I do. I think I can say this. I don't misunderstand how I'm going to say this. I've been taught all my career to be extremely unpredictable, not to be status quo, taking chances. That's how I was trained. So my sketches review all that. Hopefully, when I look at sketches, I don't see the same cluster, tunnel console, air conditioning, and so on. It's a whole new look at it. So there's another possibility there. That guy. And then, look in the corner again. A little more open. I mean, notice how it's just a simple little, let me put this over the way. Sorry about that. There it is, right there. There's another little notice how I open that right up, showing a little bit of the exterior. That's the nice thing about being involved in this operation too. Look how that thing opens right up. It's almost like just scanning it again. Hate to do this, but I want to really stress this whole idea. Look how dramatic those two drive lines are. There it is. So let's go back again to that. Again, there's one variation in the theme, and I come back again with this sketch. Same thing again from another view. This is all cowl behind, and this thing comes off of there. It just floats and just begins to cascade down to the actual seating and into the tunnel console. This would be a two-place coupe. Yeah, they're just very simple. Again, notice, that's what you're working toward, Valdemar. Pardon me, Antares. That's what you're working toward. If between now and next week, I'd love to see you just do a bunch of sketches like this. Just take a ballpoint pen out. Don't complete them. Be unpredictable. Let it go into the cowl area and let it float a little bit. It could be something like that. Or these little studies, just simple, and then float it like we did here. And again, just this kind of stuff is invaluable. Then you can take these guys and begin to put them into actual conversation in terms of finishing it off with highlight, contrast, and all the other things we've been dealing about here. Again, bring it all together and integrate it. Very simple. So hopefully, and I think that was it for that. Yep. Yeah. No, that's not it. Okay. That takes care of the sketchbook. And then last but not least, I want to close with this. It's a little bit of a different format, but it still had the same kind of impact. These sketches were done for Star Citizen. Let me drop that just a bit here so you can see what the study is. Okay, these sketches were done for Star Citizen about maybe a year ago out in California. It was Orion's G12 series. So we did a facelift on it, and these cockpit studies were done. The exterior we'll show you maybe sometime in the future here, but the interior, since that's the subject matter today, that's what I wanted to stress about. Look at the difference, and it's a single-seater. Again, same wrap, a little bit of the exterior, two information pods, tunnel console, steering control. That was part of the ground rule here. And again, same variation there, maybe a different view, not as elaborate, for example, still with those side pods. This could be all digital board here as well. This could be informational material, but that was how part of the whole the pages we worked here through. So there's one. I'll just turn these over here real quickly. Is this helping? It's a different subject matter, but it's stressing the whole idea of exaggeration, distortion, and unpredictability. Helping? Let me stop there for a moment. Yeah, it's very good. Helping, that's great. So that was the first series. I went through a series of pencil sketches with the gang, the Orion group in California. Then we started looking at some things to deal with, and we'll show you what we ended up near the end. So there's one. And then there's a little bit of an overview of the cockpit. So really starting to see like twin controls here, seating area here. And then again, very wide looking, and again, this had a roll cage or a support member with the top of it. And this is all airspace back in through here. And then there's like a spar that comes across and just floated in between the two sides of the vehicle. So another little pencil study. Again, notice the same thing, distortion. Unpredictable. One, there's two, little single cockpit area. Notice, as you're sitting back here, there's the actual cowl itself, and then this came in with these twin little signaling device, little sensing device. Maybe it's a hybernetic, some sort of a laser process for guidance. And this are two, that's the information pod. And then into the seating system. Then a little bit of a cage over the top for protection. Little studies here on, again, notice again, there's that cross member again. Here's that actual exterior. Dual controls, information up on top, and then again, just a very solid tunnel console into a very simple seating operation to put it all together. Let me stop there. And again, these are little studies based on maybe the control system, what they might look like. Are they more aircraft type, or are they actual trigger type? Again, real quick sketches. Any comment here all so far, Terrace? Is this helping? No, let's stop here for a moment to give you some idea. Any questions at all while I'm going through this explanation? Anything at all? I'll just hold on here for a moment. This is a very powerful program in terms of working with Star Citizen. The Orion program was interesting, and it didn't look like it didn't have enough impact on it from the interior and the exterior. So far, just a wholesome, more aircraft-like cockpit. This is what this looked like, more of a jet fighter, F-35 type or stealth, bringing up the modern generation. Then a little rough pencil sketch, a little bit of color added to it with a little wraparound mirror up on top. This is all holographic, etc. Twin controls, tunnel console, and up in the cowl area, more instrumentation. Now, that whole series of pencil sketches, there are obviously a lot more being done. Very elaborate in terms of sketch after sketch after sketch. They're looking at exploring ideas. They're looking for the unfamiliar. And then we move to this. Some little detail work on some of the actual sketches. These are little marker studies, very quick little sketches based on graphics, for example, instrumentation, controls, navigation systems and the like, and steering, etc. Another look at the whole idea with twin information areas, steering system. Same thing here, maybe a single with, again, that bridge behind it. And again, further a little bit of detail based on some of these guys and what their actual, what we were looking for. G12 cockpit studies. I mean, it's more aircraft-like, very familiar. Sketch 1, sketch 2, getting into some things here that really start to open things up. Notice, very single cockpit area. Everything here was floating off the cowl. This is all part of this area in through here is all behind this area here. So, again, control systems, information, etc. Part of the process. And a little bit more elaborate on this side when we're here. Again, coming off the cowl, this is all negative space. And these are twin boards that the pilot would look into behind, steering system, twin information boards, tunnel console, and primary. This is more of like a sight gun system where you're actually looking through it all and getting it all put together in terms of bringing this thing into the end generation of being more jet fighter-like or more cockpit aircraft-like. And last but not least, I think this is the finished composition of that whole process. This is where it ended up. You notice how that bridge is magnified, little heads-up display, HUD, coming back in the tunnel console, control information, control area, all these elements, for example, inside the actual form itself. So, pretty interesting thing. It was a great program to work with here. So, let me stop right there. What do you think? And Terrence, you still with me? Making sense? Hopefully this will be okay here. This is really cool. Grateful, very cool. So these principles apply to it. Yeah, I mean that's all a variety of subject matter. All the principles remain the same. That's the one thing I like about the whole idea about the creative process. The fundamentals always remain the same. The product will always be diverse. Fundamentals, identical. Product, not unidentical. I mean, completely unique. Common, uncommon. The principles, common, they all stay the same. and the product uncommon, very unique. But the principles drive it all. That's the key thing here as far as we're concerned here. Let me put these back together again. And I just want to take a moment here to thank you very much, Antares, for just a great session here today. Let me put these out of the way and go back to that initial sketch we started with here. I really thank you for the time. Great stuff to see you coming together here. And again, I compliment you for the sketches you put together. If you'd like to prolong this and send me some more sketches throughout the course of the week, please feel free to do so. I'll do all the best I can to respond again like we did last time through. And maybe next week we'll maybe change subject matter. But if we want to carry on a little bit, you want to see some more information, drop me an email. Let me know that's going to be one good thing to do or not to do. So we'll kind of take advantage of that. But again, I can't thank you enough for being a loyal voyeur with me. Terrific to have you on board. Great to have your eyeballs on this stuff to kind of help me through the process as well, to keep things very fluid and clean and, again, understandable. So hopefully this is making sense for you. Please let your friends know we're live on Wednesdays. It'd be kind of cool to have some more gang members of you come along and join us. But again, can't thank you enough. Great work, Antares. You've made huge improvements, and it's going to get better as you go. Do not be alarmed about the comments you made earlier on about getting into the whole lab and not having a vague idea. Sit down and do a plan view. Write a description. Begin to see it mentally and become unpredictable. Then blend it all together. It all happens. So that inside-out process is extremely vital here when you put it all together. So all that to say that please visit my website, jim@drcontrast.com. Drop me a note, jim@drcontrast.com, and pardon me, my website is drcontrast.com. Take a look at that, see what you think, and then also keep it up, Antares. Keep doing the great work that you're doing. Great to have you on board today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next Wednesday. And let me know, again, in your email if you want to send me a note about, hey, I'd like to see this stuff being done. I'll do all the best I can to accommodate that. And once again, great to have you on board. Thank you so much. Have a great week. And always remember to sign off with this one. Never forget to dare to remember to be great, because you are. Great stuff, gang. Thanks. Have a great week. And go get them, and all the very best. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Same time, same place. It will be live. Thank you, Dr. Contrast. Yeah, I think that's in closing here. One last thing here too, Valimar. Yeah, let's work on interior work, and if you want to work on it next week, let's do that. Cool. Thanks again, gang. Take care. All the best. Bye-bye now.